Back with Frank, with Wesley Snipes and Dan Meacham. We have received a statement from Frank Tuttle. Frank served on the jury that convicted Wesley Snipes in 2008. After the trial, he contacted Mr. Snipes' defense team. At their suggestion, we reached out to him, and he provided us with a statement that says in part, there was one juror that had said they knew Mr. Snipes was guilty when they first saw him during jury selection. I told the juror that was not right and went against what the judge had said to us before the trial was to begin. Two other jurors then agreed and said that they thought he was guilty when they first saw him before the trial began. We were deadlocked on our decision about Mr. Snipes before this happened. I was not expecting to hear that from a jury, and most of the jurors felt the same. That's when a deal was made to find him, Mr. Snipes, guilty on the failure to file taxes and not guilty on federal tax evasion charges. We did not think he would go to jail. Wes, are you surprised that the judge did not consider that?
Very much so, Larry. Very much so. I was surprised that not only did he not consider it, he wouldn't consider even interviewing the juror, even though he made himself available to be interviewed, whether it was with the defense counsel or whether it was with the judge in his own private chambers.
So you think you've been singled out here? You think you've been singled out?
Well, I'll put it this way, Larry. It does seem to be rather unusual and rather bizarre when you had a prosecutor come into the sentencing and make the statement that this was the biggest tax trial in the history of the IRS. He also made the statement that judge and a plea to the judge asking him not to offer community service because Mr. Snipes has too many fans. They would be emboldened. They think that he's beat us and they think that he's won. So if you take these things into consideration, Larry, and the way it's been misreported around the world, I think there's a certain amount of selectivity going on here.
Larry, let me just make one point of clarification. We, meaning the defense team, never suggested that the media reach out to any of the jurors. In fact, we have gone beyond our duty to make sure that the identity of the jurors was never told by us. Now, obviously, your people are pretty good investigators and found out who this juror was, but we have made it abundantly clear that we have tried in every effort, even from blanking his name out and phone number, to not make his identity known. But we do appreciate the fact that he had the integrity. I guess you did, Larry.
Can you tell us, Dan, in simple terms, why is your client going to jail Thursday?
My client is going to jail because the jury... We still have prayers out there, Larry, and we still believe in miracles. So don't send me up the river just yet. All right?
Okay. Why will he probably go to jail Thursday, Dan?
If that should happen, Larry, the reason is that the judge imposed the maximum of the misdemeanors for which the jury found him guilty of, which was the willful failure to file tax returns on 3 different counts. That's, as simple as it can be.
Yeah, is there any last chance here of any reprieve?
Well, Larry, I never give up, and we have not turned our heads to turning Mr. Snipes into the facility. We have made some inroads to trying to make sure that there are some possibilities of reprieve, and so we will fight and do that until the very last minute.
Larry, it's very, very interesting. It's been presented as though I'm worthy of this kind of punishment. It's been presented as though he's getting his just due. Larry, I've been a law-abiding citizen ever since I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I think that all of us as Americans are due process and have a right to a fair trial and have a right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. I think that is the American way, and it's the foundation upon which this country was built. Why?
But you did lose in trial, and you did lose your appeals. So that's the American system too. It seems weird here the way you presented it, and the way based on what that juror said.
But
why did that juror find you guilty?
Well, the jury,
I think they just
based on your statement that you said it was a compromise and thought that the judge would never ever possibly send him to prison. But Larry, let me say this to you, because the judicial system is where I live, and that's what I do.
I know.
In March of 2008, there was a billionaire by the name of Oligarch who pled guilty to tax evasion, a felony. He paid $54 million in back taxes, brought all of his money back from out of the country, and was given probation, Larry, for 6 months. Now, the problem with that is the inconsistency of the punishment. I would think that you would agree. On the one hand, a person pleads guilty to a felony, owes $54 million in back taxes, agrees to bring his money back to the state, and he's given some months of probation. My client is found guilty of a misdemeanor and given 36 months. So
Wes, did you owe the government any money, Wes?
Well, they claim that there was a certain number that was owed, and that number has slid all over the place, and the press has escalated it and changed it a number of times. But we think that we are fully compliant with whatever was owed for the year.
So you paid, in your opinion, you paid what you think was owed?
Oh yes, Larry, not only did I pay, but my position was that I would always pay.
And we'll be back with more of Wes Snipes and Dan Meacham. Don't go away.
All right, so it's time only an hour last 8 hours.
White men can't jump. Always bet on black.
We're with Wesley Snipes exclusive tonight with his attorney Dan Meacham, and only in a couple of minutes Judge Joe Brown, who was a character witness at his sentencing, will appear with us here in studio. Dan, what is open to you other than a pardon or a commutation?
Well, you know, Larry, what we have done is we are planning on filing a cert before the Supreme Court on the original appeal on venue, because we think that is an issue that the Supreme Court would want to hear. But in addition to that, we have appealed the judge's denial of a new trial and to interview the juror. But that brings up a very good point, Larry, that I want to make to you, is in any criminal case, there are elements that has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case. And intent to willfully not file returns was one of the elements that was necessary for that charge. And the person that they used to supply the testimony for that element was Ken Starr. Now, Ken Starr, as you know, is now awaiting sentencing this month. In fact, he may have already been sentenced. But Ken Starr was referred to as Mini Madoff. Ken Starr is a very accountant, tax lawyer that Mr. Snipes had an issue with and decided to find another source to file and review his taxes. Now, that's very, very important, Larry, because we found all of those things about Ken Starr's enterprising criminal activity after the trial was over. So that was one of the things that we wanted the judge to at least consider. It wasn't a fishing expedition. There was a criminal complaint filed against Mr. Starr. There was an SEC complaint filed against Mr. Starr. And about 3 weeks later, Larry, there was an indictment. This man stole between $20 and $80 million from people. In fact, he stole $7.5 million from a 91-year-old widower in New York and went about a
He also stole He
And what about a man who has
Al
a partner?
Pacino and many others. Ken
That's
Starr's
correct.
not the
We believe
star
that the rumors have it that they